You've worked hard. You've sacrificed your sleep, your weekends, and your precious time with family. You've read the blogs, listened to the self-proclaimed gurus, and tried every hustle imaginable. But look at your bank account. Look at your life. Does it truly reflect the immense effort you've put in? Or does it feel like you're running on a treadmill, exhausted, moving fast, but staying in the exact same place? The truth is, hard work alone is a lie. If hard work was the only requirement for wealth, the world would be filled with billionaire construction workers and janitors. You are missing something invisible, something that 500 of the world's most powerful icons used to build massive empires while everyone else struggled for crumbs. In 1908, a young journalist named Napoleon Hill was given a life-changing mission by the richest man on earth, Andrew Carnegie. The mission was to codify the universal law of success. Carnegie knew that wealth isn't a result of mere luck or birthright. It is a psychological blueprint. For 25 years, Hill followed the giants, Henry Ford, John D. Rockefeller, and Thomas Edison, to extract a precise 13-step formula. This isn't just a book about money, it's a manual for your mind. It's titled Think and Grow Rich. Notice it's not called Work Hard and Grow Rich. It says Think. Over the next 60 minutes, we are going to deconstruct the exact 13 principles that have created more millionaires than any other system in history. We are going through every single chapter, from the mystery of the sixth sense to the undeniable power of the mastermind. If you are tired of struggling, if you are ready to stop working for money and finally start making your mind work for you, then do not turn away. Your transformation starts right here, right now. Chapter 1. Desire, the starting point of all achievement. Most people walk through life with a vague wish for more money, but they are paralyzed by a silent, suffocating fear. It is the fear of the what-ifs. What if I never make it? What if I end up broke, struggling to pay the mortgage while my neighbors thrive? What if I spend 40 years building someone else's dream, only to be discarded with a mediocre pension? This fear of poverty isn't just a feeling. It is a ghost that haunts your every decision. It makes you play it safe. It makes you stay small. But here is the cold, hard truth. Wishing will not bring riches. Dreaming of financial freedom while lying in bed will not fill your bank account. The universe does not reward those who simply want. It rewards those who are possessed by a burning desire. To get what you've never had, you must become obsessed with your goal until it becomes a living, breathing part of your identity. So, what is the core secret of this chapter? It is the transformation of a vague wish into a burning desire. In the world of success, a wish is weak. It has no power. But a burning desire is like a magnetic force. It aligns your subconscious mind with the frequency of wealth. When you want something as badly as a drowning man wants air, the how will start to appear. This isn't magic. It is mental chemistry. When your mind is focused on a single, definite goal, you stop seeing obstacles and start seeing opportunities. You shift from being a victim of circumstance to being the architect of your fate. Let me tell you a story about Edwin C. Barnes. Barnes was a man who had a burning desire to become the business associate of the great inventor, Thomas Edison. But Barnes had two major problems. First, he didn't know Edison. Second, he didn't have enough money to pay for a train ticket to New Jersey. Most people would have quit right there. They would have said, maybe next year. But not Barnes. His desire was not a hope, it was a must. He traveled on a freight train, literally like a hobo, just to get an interview. When he stood before Edison, he looked like a common tramp, but his mind was that of a king. Edison gave him a job, but it was a low-level grunt work position. For months, Barnes worked in the shadows. To the outside world, he was just another cog in the machine. But in his own mind, he was already Edison's partner. He waited, he prepared. Finally, a chance came.
Edison had invented a new office machine called the Ediphone. His salesmen weren't interested in it. They didn't think it would sell. Barnes saw his opening. He stepped up and told Edison he could sell the machine. And he did. He sold it so successfully that Edison gave him a contract to distribute the device across the entire nation. Barnes didn't just get a job. He became a millionaire by thinking his way into a partnership. He had no plan B. He didn't say, "I'll try this, and if it fails, I'll do something else." He burned his ships. He staked his entire future on his ability to win. That is the power of a burning desire. Why did Barnes succeed where thousands of others failed? It's simple. He reached a state of mind where retreat was impossible. Your subconscious mind is like a garden. If you plant a weak wish, you get weeds. If you plant a burning desire and water it with daily action, you get a harvest of gold. Barnes won because he stayed in the game long after everyone else would have gone home. He convinced his subconscious that there was only one possible outcome: success. When you eliminate the option of failure, your brain unlocks levels of creativity and persistence you never knew you had. 5. The exercise, the 6 practical steps to wealth. Now, how do you do this? Napoleon Hill gives us 6 definite practical steps. Listen closely, because this is where the theory becomes reality. First, fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. Don't just say, "I want a lot." Be specific. If it's $1 million, say $1 million. Second, determine exactly what you intend to give in return for this money. There is no such thing as something for nothing. Third, establish a definite date when you intend to possess this money. Fourth, create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once, whether you are ready or not. Fifth, write out a clear, concise statement of the amount, the time limit, the sacrifice, and the plan. Sixth, read your written statement aloud twice daily, once before bed and once when you wake up. As you read, you must see and feel yourself already in possession of the money. The starting point of all wealth is a state of mind. If you don't see riches in your imagination, you will never see them in your bank account. Desire is the fuel, but faith is the engine. But wait, how do you keep that desire alive when life gets hard? How do you believe in something you can't see yet? That is the secret of the next chapter. Stay tuned, because we are about to dive into Chapter 2, Faith. You are about to learn how to literally talk your subconscious into making you rich. Don't go anywhere.
We all have a voice inside our heads. For most of us, that voice is a critic. It whispers, "You aren't smart enough." It says, "You don't have the right connections," or "People like you don't become millionaires." This is the poison of doubt. Doubt is the silent killer of dreams. It is the opposite of faith. Most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they lack the conviction that they will actually succeed. They have a desire, yes, but they don't have the faith to back it up. Without faith, your desire is just a wish, and as we learned, wishes are worthless. If you find yourself constantly worrying about failure, you are actually using the power of your mind in reverse. You are faithfully attracting poverty. It's time to flip the switch. So what is faith? In the context of wealth, faith is a state of mind. It is a state of mind that you can voluntarily create. This is the secret. Faith is not something you either have or don't have. It is a muscle you build through repetition. When you combine a thought with faith, it changes its vibration. It becomes spiritual. It becomes powerful enough to reach your subconscious mind. Think of your subconscious as a giant laboratory. If you send it a message of fear, it will create a reality of fear. But if you send it a message of faith, it will translate that message into its physical equivalent. You must learn to convince your subconscious that you already have what you want. You must believe it until it becomes your reality. Let's look at a real-world example of faith in action. Think back to the early 1900s. A man named Charles M. Schwab had a vision. He wanted to create a massive steel corporation, something the world had never seen. At the time, the steel industry was fragmented, messy, and competitive. Schwab didn't have billions of dollars. He didn't own all the factories, but he had an absolute, unshakable faith in his vision. He sat down at a dinner with the most powerful banker in the world, J.P. Morgan. For 80 minutes, Schwab spoke. He didn't just talk about steel. He painted a picture of a future empire. He spoke with such conviction, such intensity, and such faith that the cold, calculating J.P. Morgan was completely sold. Morgan didn't buy a company. He bought Schwab's faith.
That dinner led to the birth of the United States Steel Corporation, the first billion-dollar corporation in history. Why did it work? Because Schwab saw the result before it existed. He lived in the state of faith so deeply that the world had no choice but to align with him. He didn't wait for the money to believe. He believed, and then the money followed. Why was Schwab successful? It wasn't just his knowledge of steel. It was the vibration of his mind. He had eliminated the possibility of no. When you walk into a room with absolute faith, people can feel it. This is the bridge between your mind and the physical world. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. Because Schwab had practiced his vision in his mind over and over, his subconscious accepted it as a fact. It then guided his words and actions to make that fact a reality. If you want to attract wealth, you must first become wealth conscious in your own mind. How do you build this faith muscle? You use the self-confidence formula. This is a practical exercise you must do every day. First, demand of yourself persistent, continuous action toward your goal. Promise yourself right now that you will never give up. Second, realize that the dominating thoughts of your mind will eventually reproduce themselves in outward physical action. Therefore, spend 30 minutes a day thinking of the person you intend to become. Create a clear mental picture. Third, spend 10 minutes a day demanding of yourself the development of self-confidence through autosuggestion. Fourth, clearly write down a description of your definitive chief aim in life. Never stop trying until you have developed enough self-confidence for its attainment. Fifth, realize that no wealth or position can long endure unless built upon truth and justice. Eliminate hatred, envy, and selfishness. Sign your name to this formula. Commit it to memory. Repeat it aloud once a day with full faith that it will gradually influence your thoughts and actions. Faith is the eternal elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. It is the only known antidote for failure. If you can see it in your mind and believe it in your heart, you will hold it in your hand. But here's the big question. How do you plant these seeds of faith deep into the fertile soil of your subconscious? How do you actually program your brain while you sleep? That is exactly what we're covering in the next chapter. Get ready, because chapter 3 is all about the control center of your destiny, autosuggestion. See you in the next part.
Have you ever wondered why you set big goals on New Year's Day, only to abandon them by February? Why do you tell yourself you're going to be rich, but your hands tremble when you have to make a big investment? It's because there is a war going on inside you. Your conscious mind wants success, but your subconscious mind, the part that actually controls your behavior, is still running old software. It's running programs of "I'm not lucky," "money is the root of all evil," or "I've always been a failure." This is the unseen saboteur. Most people are auto-suggesting themselves into poverty every single day without even knowing it. They speak words of lack, they think thoughts of limitation, and their subconscious obediently delivers exactly that. If you don't intentionally program your mind, the world will program it for you. And trust me, the world doesn't want you to be a billionaire. Autosuggestion is the communication bridge between the part of your mind that thinks and the part of your mind that acts. Think of your subconscious as a fertile piece of land. If you don't plant seeds of success, weeds will grow by default. Autosuggestion is the process of deliberately planting those seeds. It is the act of feeding your mind thoughts of wealth, power, and victory until they become automatic. Here is the key. Your subconscious mind accepts any command given to it in a spirit of absolute belief. It doesn't argue. It doesn't judge. It simply moves to transform that thought into its physical reality. But there's a catch. It won't work if you just read words off a page like a robot. You must mix your words with emotion. Plain, unemotional words do not influence the subconscious. You have to feel the money in your hands as you speak. Let's look at the story of one of the greatest orators in history, Demosthenes of ancient Greece. Demosthenes had a dream of becoming a great public speaker, but he had a massive problem. He was born with a severe speech impediment. He stuttered. He was weak. When he first tried to speak in public, the crowd literally laughed him off the stage. Did he quit? No. He used the power of autosuggestion before the term even existed. He built an underground study where he could practice without interruption. He would go to the seashore and speak with pebbles in his mouth to overcome his stutter, shouting over the roar of the waves. Every single day, he told himself, "I am a great orator. My voice moves nations." He didn't wait for the crowd to cheer to feel successful. He cheered for himself in the dark until his subconscious believed it. Eventually, his speech became so powerful and his conviction so deep that he became the most influential speaker in Athens. He literally talked his way from being a mocked stutterer to a legend. He programmed his mind for greatness, and his body had no choice but to follow. Why did Demosthenes succeed? Because he understood that the subconscious mind is like a servant. If you tell it the same thing over and over with enough passion, it will eventually find a way to make it happen. By practicing with pebbles in his mouth and shouting at the ocean, he wasn't just training his vocal cords, he was training his self-image. He was overriding the old program of the stutterer with the new program of the orator. This is what you must do with your financial life. You have to talk to yourself until your poor self dies and your rich self takes over. You are the captain of your soul because you are the master of your thoughts. How do you use autosuggestion to get rich? You must follow the ritual Napoleon Hill laid out. It's simple, but 95% of people are too lazy to do it. First, go to a quiet place, usually in bed just before you fall asleep. Close your eyes. Second, repeat aloud the written statement of your definite chief aim, the amount of money you want, and the date you will have it. Third, as you do this, visualize. Don't just see the numbers. See yourself using the money. See the car you're driving. Feel the texture of the steering wheel. Smell the leather. Fourth, repeat this again first thing in the morning. Fifth, place your written statement where you can see it every day. Read it just before you go to sleep and right after you wake up. By doing this, you are hacking your brain during the alpha and theta brainwave states, the times when your subconscious is most open to suggestion. You are the gatekeeper of your own mind. Every word you speak and every thought you dwell on is a command to your future. If you want to be rich, you must speak the language of riches. Autosuggestion is the tool, but what happens when you need more than just positive thinking? What happens when you need real, specialized power to execute your plans? That leads us to a crucial realization. General knowledge is useless for making money. To reach the top 1%, you need something much more potent. Get ready, because in the next chapter, we're breaking down the myth of the generalist and showing you how to acquire the specialized knowledge that the world is desperate to pay for. Let's move to chapter 4.
There is a massive lie that the education system has sold us for decades. They told you that knowledge is power. They told you that if you just get a degree, stay in school, and collect facts, success will naturally follow. But look around. The world is filled with highly educated people who are broke. Professors, researchers, and generalists who know a little bit about everything but own nothing. The truth is, knowledge is only potential power. It becomes real power only when it is organized into a definite plan of action and directed to a definite end. General knowledge, no matter how vast or varied, is useless in the quest for riches. If you find yourself working hard but not getting ahead, it's likely because your knowledge is too broad and not deep enough. In the modern economy, the world doesn't pay you for what you know. It pays you for what you can do with what you know. So what is specialized knowledge? It is the ability to narrow your focus to a specific niche and become an authority in that field. It is the bridge between an idea and its execution. Think of it this way. A general practitioner doctor makes a good living, but a brain surgeon? They make a fortune. Why? Because they have specialized. You do not need to know everything yourself. This is the secret that the elite understand. You don't need to be a walking encyclopedia. You just need to know where to find the knowledge you need, and more importantly, how to organize that knowledge into a plan to make money. Success comes to those who specialize in a service, a product, or a profession that the world desperately needs. Let's look at a famous story about Henry Ford. During the First World War, a Chicago newspaper called Ford an ignorant pacifist. Ford sued him for libel. During the trial, the newspaper's lawyers tried to prove he was ignorant by asking him dozens of general history and science questions. They asked, who was Benedict Arnold, and how many soldiers did the British send to America in 1776? Ford grew tired of the trivial questions. He pointed his finger at the lawyer and said, if I should really want to answer the foolish question you have just asked, or any of the other questions you have been asking me, let me remind you that I have a row of electric push buttons on my desk. By pushing the right button, I can summon to my aid men who can answer any question I desire to ask. Now, will you kindly tell me, why should I clutter up my mind with general knowledge for the purpose of being able to answer questions when I have men around me who can supply any knowledge I require? The courtroom went silent. That is the answer of a master. Ford wasn't ignorant. He was a specialist in the art of organizing men and machines. He didn't need to know the dates of the Civil War to build the world's most successful car company. He knew how to acquire the specialized knowledge he needed to reach his goal. Why did Ford win? Because he understood that the ability to organize specialized knowledge is worth infinitely more than the ability to memorize it.
Most people spend years in school memorizing facts they will never use. They graduate with a head full of data, but no plan on how to monetize it. To be like Ford, you must stop trying to be a jack of all trades. You need to identify the specific knowledge required to achieve your definite chief aim, and then go get it, whether that means hiring experts, taking a specialized course, or through self-study. Your degree might be the end of your schooling, but it should never be the end of your education. How do you apply this today? You need a roadmap for mastery. Follow these steps. First, identify the specific niche you want to dominate. What is the one thing you can become an expert in that has a high market value? Second, audit your current knowledge. What are you missing? Do you need to learn marketing, coding, high-level sales? Third, determine how you will acquire this knowledge. Will you buy books, join a mastermind, hire a consultant, or take an internship? Fourth, organize. Create a written plan of how you will use this new knowledge to provide a service or create a product. Fifth, execution. Knowledge is useless without action. Start applying what you learn immediately. Remember, the price of specialized knowledge is nothing compared to the cost of ignorance. Specialized knowledge is the fuel for your journey, but even the best fuel is useless without an engine to turn it into movement. You can have all the facts in the world, but if you don't have the creative spark to put them together in a new way, you will stay stuck. How do you take your knowledge and turn it into a world-changing invention or $1 million business idea? That is the magic of the next chapter. Get ready to enter the workshop of the mind. In Chapter 5, we are going deep into the world of imagination. This is where dreams are built before they ever become real. I'll see you in the next chapter.
Why is it that two people can have the same specialized knowledge, the same degree, and the same work ethic, yet one struggles while the other becomes a multi-millionaire? The difference isn't in their hands, it's in their workshop. Most people have a lazy imagination. They use their minds only to solve the problems of today. How to pay the bills, how to get through the commute, how to survive until Friday. They have stopped dreaming because they've been told to be realistic. But being realistic is the fastest road to mediocrity. If you cannot see a reality that doesn't exist yet, you will forever be a slave to the reality that does. The greatest tragedy in life is not a lack of money, but a poverty of imagination. Without a vision, the people and their bank accounts perish. Napoleon Hill teaches us that there are two types of imagination. You must understand both to get rich. First, there is synthetic imagination. This is the ability to take old ideas, concepts, or plans and rearrange them into new combinations. Most inventors and business leaders use this. They don't create something from nothing. They simply improve what already exists. Second, there is creative imagination. This is the direct link between your mind and infinite intelligence. This is where hunches and inspirations come from. It is the antenna of your brain. To become wealthy, you must first sharpen your synthetic imagination to solve market problems, and then open your creative imagination to receive the big ideas that change the world. Your imagination is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it withers. If you use it daily, it becomes an unstoppable force. Let's look at a story of how a simple idea, processed through the imagination, created an empire. Over 100 years ago, an old country doctor rode into a small town. He went into a drugstore and started bargaining with a young clerk. The doctor wanted to sell a secret formula and an old battered copper kettle for $500, which was his life savings at the time. The clerk bought it. To anyone else, it was just a kettle and a piece of paper with some ingredients. But the clerk, Asa Candler, had something the doctor didn't: imagination. Candler didn't just see a brown liquid, he saw a vision of a world thirsty for a refreshing drink. He took that synthetic imagination, added a massive marketing plan, and mixed it with the creative imagination to build a brand identity. That old copper kettle and the secret formula became Coca-Cola. The formula was the same, but the imagination applied to it turned a $500 investment into one of the wealthiest companies on the planet. The doctor saw medicine, the clerk saw a global phenomenon. Why did Asa Candler become rich while the doctor stayed poor? Because the doctor sold a product, but the clerk bought an idea. Ideas are the only things in this world that have no fixed price. A piece of specialized knowledge has a market rate. An hour of labor has a minimum wage. But a great idea, born in the imagination, is worth whatever you decide it's worth. Wealth begins with an idea. But remember, the idea itself is useless unless it is backed by a burning desire and a definite plan. The imagination is the workshop where you take the raw material of your desire and shape it into a plan.
If you want more money, stop looking for more work and start looking for a better idea. How do you wake up your sleeping imagination? You need to start exercising it every single day. First, schedule thinking time. Spend 15 minutes a day in total silence with a notebook. Second, practice synthetic improvement. Take an everyday object or a common service and ask yourself, how could this be 10 times better, 10 times faster, or 10 times more beautiful? Third, write down every hunch. When a random idea pops into your head, don't dismiss it. Write it down immediately. Your creative imagination is trying to speak to you. Fourth, the what-if game. Ask yourself, what if I had no limitations? What would I build? How would I serve the world? Fifth, formulate one definite idea into a written plan today, even if it's small. The act of writing it down moves it from the world of dreams to the world of reality. Your imagination is the only limit to what you can achieve. It is the blueprint for your future mansion, your future business, and your future life. If you can see it in the workshop of your mind, you can bring it into the world of your hands. But a blueprint is not a building. An idea is just a ghost until it has a body. How do you take that spark from your imagination and turn it into a concrete, organized, and indestructible plan of action? That is the secret of the next chapter. We are moving from the dream to the blueprint. Get ready for Chapter 6, Organized Planning. This is where the real work begins. See you there.
You have a burning desire. You have faith. You've even used your imagination to spark a brilliant idea. But why are you still standing still? Most people fail at this exact stage because they are drifters. They have a destination in mind, but they have no map. They hope that somehow things will just work out. But hope is not a strategy. Success never happens by accident. If you do not have a written, organized plan of action, you are like a ship without a rudder. You will be tossed around by the waves of circumstance, moving in circles until you run out of fuel. The world is full of brilliant failures, people with great ideas who never built anything because they couldn't organize their thoughts into a sequence of concrete steps. You don't need more luck, you need a better plan. Organized planning is the process of taking the vapor of an idea and turning it into a solid reality. It is the bridge between thinking and doing. Napoleon Hill emphasizes that no one has enough experience, education, or native ability to ensure the accumulation of a great fortune without the cooperation of other people. This is where most lone wolves fail. To succeed, you must build a mastermind group, a team of people who provide the knowledge and support you lack. Your plan must be a living document. If the first plan you adopt does not work successfully, replace it with a new plan. If this new plan fails to work, replace it in turn with still another, and so on until you find a plan which does work. Temporary defeat is not permanent failure. It only means your plan was not sound. Let's look at the story of Frank W. Gonzalez. He was a young preacher who had a dream. He wanted to build a school where young people could learn by doing, a technical institute that didn't yet exist. But he needed $1 million, a staggering amount at the time. For 2 years, he wished for the money. He thought about it, but nothing happened. Finally, he decided to stop wishing and start planning. He made a definite decision. He told himself, I will have that $1 million within a week. He didn't just pray, he organized. He prepared a sermon titled, What I Would Do If I Had $1 Million. He planned every detail of the school in his mind. He called the newspapers. He created a mastermind connection with his congregation. When he stood at the pulpit, he spoke with such organized clarity and conviction that at the end of the sermon, a man named Philip D. Armour walked up to him and said, Young man, I believe you could do all you said. If you will come to my office tomorrow morning, I will give you the $1 million. Gonzalez didn't get the money because he wanted it. He got it because he had a definite, organized plan that was so clear it compelled another person to invest in it. Why was Gonzalez successful in 1 day after failing for 2 years? It's because he shifted from passive wishing to active planning. A plan acts as a magnet for resources. When you are organized, you project an aura of competence that attracts mastermind partners and investors. Most people's plans are too blurry. If I asked you right now, exactly what are you going to do at 9 a.m. tomorrow to reach your goal? Could you answer? Gonzalez could. He knew exactly what the school would look like, who it would serve, and how it would run. Money follows clarity. Chaos attracts poverty. How do you build an indestructible plan? You follow these 4 steps. First, ally yourself with a group of as many people as you may need for the creation and carrying out of your plan. This is your mastermind.
Second, before forming your mastermind, decide what advantages and benefits you may offer the individual members of your group in return for their cooperation. No one will work indefinitely with some form of compensation. Third, arrange to meet with the members of your mastermind group at least twice a week, and more often if possible, until you have jointly perfected the plan. Fourth, maintain perfect harmony between yourself and every member of your group. If you fail to do this, your plan will die. Remember, you are looking for a plan that works, not a plan that is yours. Be humble enough to change your plan if the results aren't there. A plan is the skeleton of your dream. It gives it structure, strength, and the ability to move. Without it, you are just a dreamer. With it, you are a leader. But even with the best plan in the world, there is one thing that kills more dreams than anything else: the inability to make a move. Thousands of people have perfect plans sitting in their desk drawers, gathering dust. Why? Because they are waiting for the perfect time. How do you overcome the disease of hesitation? How do you become the kind of person who decides with lightning speed and stays firm? In the next chapter, we tackle the silent dream killer, procrastination. Get ready for Chapter 7, Decision. It's time to pull the trigger.
Analysis of several hundred people who had accumulated fortunes well beyond the $1 million mark disclosed the fact that every one of them had the habit of reaching decisions promptly and of changing these decisions slowly, if and when they were changed. On the flip side, people who failed to accumulate money, without exception, have the habit of reaching decisions, if at all, very slowly, and of changing these decisions quickly and often. The greatest enemy of your success is not a lack of opportunity. It is procrastination. Most people live in the land of someday. Someday I'll start that business. Someday I'll invest. But someday is a road that leads to a town called never. Indecision is a habit that starts in youth and hardens like concrete as you get older. If you cannot make up your mind, you have already decided to stay where you are. Decision is the act of cutting off all other possibilities. The word decide comes from the Latin decidere, which literally means to cut off. When you make a real decision, you cut off every other option except the one that leads to your goal. Successful people make decisions quickly because they know their definite chief aim. They don't need to waver because they have a North Star. They change their decisions slowly because they have faith in their original plan. Weak people do the opposite. They take forever to choose a path, and the moment they hit a bump in the road, they abandon it for something easier. To be rich, you must be a master of your own mind. You must reach your own decisions and follow them. Do not let the opinions of well-meaning friends and relatives influence you into a state of doubt. Let's look at one of the most powerful examples of decision in human history, the signing of the Declaration of Independence. On July 4th, 1776, 56 men placed their signatures on a document. This wasn't just a political move, it was a decision that carried the penalty of death. If the revolution failed, every one of those men would have been hanged by the British Crown. They didn't wait and see how the war would go. They didn't ask for permission. They made a prompt, definite decision to be free or to die. That one collective decision created a new world. It was a decision backed by a burning desire and faith, and it changed the course of history. Those men didn't have a plan B. They didn't have an exit strategy. They decided, they committed, and the universe aligned to make the United States of America a reality. That is the massive power of a mind that is made up. Why is decision-making so critical to wealth? Because the world has a habit of making room for the person whose words and actions show that they know where they are going. When you hesitate, you signal to the world that you are not ready for power. Wealth is attracted to certainty. By reaching a prompt decision, you unlock your subconscious mind's ability to focus entirely on execution rather than wasting energy on should I or shouldn't I. The men who signed the Declaration of Independence succeeded because they closed the door to retreat. When failure is not an option, success becomes the only outcome. How do you develop the habit of prompt decision-making? You must train your brain like a muscle. First, practice making small decisions in under 30 seconds. What to eat, what to wear, which task to do first. Do not linger. Second, keep your own counsel. Close
close your ears to the opinions of others. Most people who try to give you advice have no results to show for it. Third, reach your decisions based on your definite chief aim. If a choice aligns with your goal, say yes fast. If it doesn't, say no even faster. Fourth, once a decision is made, do not revisit it unless there is a massive change in facts. Stop the second-guessing cycle. Fifth, understand that a wrong decision is often better than no decision at all. You can correct a moving car, but you can't steer a parked one. Decision is the spark that ignites the fire of achievement. It is the moment a dreamer becomes a doer. Those who reach decisions promptly and firmly know what they want, and they generally get it. But making a decision is only the start. The real test comes when the initial excitement wears off. What happens when the honeymoon phase of your plan ends, and you're faced with exhaustion, boredom, and repeated failure? How do you keep going when everyone else quits? In the next chapter, we talk about the one quality that separates the winners from the almost winners. It's the insurance policy for your success. Get ready for Chapter 8, Persistence. This is where the legends are made. See you there.
Most people are good starters, but bad finishers. They are enthusiastic when the idea is new, when the sun is shining, and when the path is easy. But the moment the first wave of opposition hits, the moment they lose money, get rejected, or face a family crisis, they quit. They say, maybe it wasn't meant to be. But let me tell you something. Failure is a trickster with a keen sense of irony and cunning. It takes great delight in tripping you when success is almost within reach. Most people quit just 3 feet from gold. They walk away right before the breakthrough. This lack of persistence is the #1 reason for failure. Success doesn't go to the smartest or the fastest. It goes to the one who refuses to stop. Persistence is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. Without it, you are brittle. With it, you are unbreakable. Persistence is a state of mind, and like all states of mind, it can be cultivated. It is the insurance policy for your definite chief aim. Napoleon Hill explains that there is no substitute for persistence. It cannot be replaced by any other quality. If you have persistence, you will eventually find that hidden guide who tests you through various forms of temporary defeat. When you stand up and keep moving after being knocked down, the universe eventually realizes it cannot stop you. At that point, the luck starts to change. The breaks start to happen. Persistence is the only thing that can transform a no into a yes. It is the bridge that carries you from the land of trying to the land of having. Let's talk about a man whose name is synonymous with success, despite constant failure, Abraham Lincoln. If you look at Lincoln's life before he became president, it was a record of almost nothing but defeat. He failed in business at age 22. He was defeated for the legislature at 23. He failed in business again at 24. His sweetheart died when he was 26. He had a nervous breakdown at 27. He lost an 8th grade effort for Congress, lost a senatorial race, and was defeated for vice president. For 30 years, he was beaten over and over again. Most men would have crawled into a hole and disappeared. But Lincoln had a persistence that was almost supernatural. He didn't see defeat as a sign to quit. He saw it as a lesson to learn. Because he refused to accept permanent failure, he eventually reached the highest office in the land and saved a nation. He didn't win because he was a genius. He won because he was the last man standing. Why did Lincoln win? Because he understood that the only permanent failure is the one you accept in your own mind. Every time you persist through a setback, you are conditioning your subconscious mind. You are telling it, I am the boss here. This builds a form of mental stamina that is terrifying to your competition. While they are sleeping, you are working. While they are complaining, you are planning. While they are quitting, you are persisting. Persistence is simply the habit of keeping your mind focused on your desire until your subconscious has no choice but to find a way to make it real. It is the process of talking yourself back into the fight every single morning. How do you develop a will of iron? You follow these 4 simple steps. First, a definite purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment. You must know why you are fighting. Second, a definite plan expressed in continuous action.
You cannot persist if you don't know the next step. Third, a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences, including the suggestions of relatives, friends, and acquaintances. Fourth, a friendly alliance with one or more persons who will encourage you to follow through with both plan and purpose, your mastermind. These 4 steps are the magic pillars. If you stand on them, no amount of bad luck can ever take you down. Persistence is the difference between a dreamer and a legend. It is the quality that turns a hustle into a legacy. If you can stay in the game long enough, the world will eventually get out of your way. But staying in the game is hard when you're doing it alone. You only have so much energy, so much time, and so much brain power. What if you could borrow the brains of others? What if you could multiply your power by 10 or 100? In the next chapter, we reveal the most powerful multiplication tool in the history of success. We're moving beyond the individual and into the collective. Get ready for Chapter 9, the power of the mastermind. It's time to stop working hard and start working with power. See you in the next one.
Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but you've hit a ceiling? You're working 14 hours a day, you're disciplined, and you have the desire, but the massive wealth you're chasing still feels miles away. This is the lone wolf's trap. Most people are taught to be self-reliant, to do it themselves, but in the history of the world, no one has ever accumulated great power or wealth alone. Your individual brain, no matter how brilliant, has a limit. You only have 24 hours in a day. You only have one perspective. If you try to build an empire by yourself, you will burn out before you even reach the gates. Power is the organized and intelligently directed knowledge necessary to accumulate money, and you cannot organize enough knowledge on your own to reach the top 1%. You need more than one brain. So, what is a mastermind? It is the coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between 2 or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. But here is the secret that Napoleon Hill discovered. When 2 or more people coordinate in a spirit of harmony, they create a third brain. Think of it like a battery. If you connect several batteries together, the total energy produced is much greater than the sum of the individual parts. When 2 minds join together, a third invisible, intangible force is created, a psychic mind that has access to ideas and solutions that neither person could have reached alone. This is not just networking, it is a spiritual alliance that multiplies your power. Let's look at the man who inspired this entire book, Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie was an immigrant who started with nothing. He didn't know much about the technical side of the steel business. If you asked him a deep question about metallurgy, he probably couldn't answer it. Yet he became the richest man in the world. How? He attributed his entire fortune to his mastermind group. He surrounded himself with a staff of approximately 50 men, whom he retained for the specific purpose of manufacturing and marketing steel. He didn't need to know everything. He just needed to know how to keep 50 brilliant minds working in perfect harmony toward a single goal. Carnegie was the conductor of an orchestra. He didn't play every instrument. He made sure every instrument played the right note at the right time. His wealth was not a product of his labor, but a product of the power generated by his mastermind alliance. Why is the mastermind so effective? It gives you 2 distinct advantages. First, the economic advantage. You get access to the experience, education, and influence of others. You can literally buy the specialized knowledge of people who are smarter than you are. Second, the psychic advantage. This is the third brain effect. When you sit in a room with other high-level thinkers, your own vibration rises. You start to think bigger. You solve problems faster. You catch flashes of inspiration that don't happen when you're sitting alone in your room. If you are the smartest person in your circle is too small. You are not being challenged. You are being capped. How do you create your own mastermind? You don't need 50 people like Carnegie. You only need 2 or 3 to start. First, select the people you want in your group. Look for people who have the skills you lacked. Look for people who are more successful than you are. Second, establish a definite purpose for the group. Why are you meeting? What is the common goal? Third, determine what you can offer them in return. This could be money, your own expertise, or a share in the profits. A mastermind must be a win-win for everyone. Fourth, meet regularly, at least twice a week. Consistency is the only way to build the third brain connection. Fifth, maintain perfect harmony. If there is ego, if there is jealousy, or if there is conflict, the power vanishes instantly. The group must be a safe space for total honesty and cooperation.
Power is the fuel of achievement, and the mastermind is the generator that creates it. When you stop trying to do it all yourself and start leveraging the power of others, your growth will become exponential. You are no longer one person, you are a force. But there is another source of power, one that is even more intense and more primal than the mastermind. It is the most powerful energy in the human body. Most people waste it, but the elite learn to transmute it into genius and wealth. Are you ready to talk about the most controversial chapter in this book? In the next part, we're going to explore the mystery of sex transmutation. This is how you turn raw passion into pure gold. See you there.
Most people hear the word sex and immediately think of physical gratification. They view it as a biological urge to be satisfied and then forgotten. But in doing so, they are leaking their most potent source of power. Nature has gifted the human being with a vital energy so strong that it can create life itself. But what happens when that same energy is trapped and redirected? The majority of men and women dissipate this energy through overindulgence, leaving them with no drive, no spark, and no magnetism for their business or career. They are like a car with a massive engine, but a leaking fuel tank. They have the potential for greatness, but they lack the concentrated will to reach it. The sex desire is the most powerful of all human desires. When driven by this desire, people develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, and persistence that they never knew they possessed. If you don't learn to harness this force, you are leaving your greatest asset on the table. So, what is transmutation? It is simple. It is the changing of one element or form of energy into another. In this context, it means diverting the mind from thoughts of physical expression into thoughts of some other creative effort. Sex energy is the raw material of genius. Every great leader, artist, and builder in history has been a person with a highly developed sex nature. But they didn't become great because of the physical act. They became great because they learned to transmute that raw, primal drive into their work. When this energy is redirected into your definite chief aim, it provides you with a superpower that an ordinary person simply cannot match. It heightens your vibration and allows you to access the creative imagination we talked about in Chapter 5. Let's look at the history of the world's most successful men. Napoleon Hill discovered a shocking statistic. Very few men achieve great success before the age of 40. Why? Because before 40, most men waste their vital energy in the physical pursuit of sex. They are sex mad, and their energy is scattered. It is only after 40, when they learn to balance this drive and redirect it into their careers, that their real achievement begins. Think of men like Napoleon Bonaparte, George Washington, or Thomas Jefferson. These were men of intense passion, but they didn't let that passion consume them. They used it as a furnace to power their ambitions. Consider Andrew Carnegie or Henry Ford. Their magnetism, that invisible force that made people follow them and invest in them, was nothing more than highly developed sex energy transmuted into charisma and leadership. They had a vibration of success that was irresistible. They didn't just work harder, they worked with a higher intensity of being. Why does transmutation lead to wealth? Because a person who has learned to transmute this energy develops a magnetic personality. When you have a high level of vital energy, your voice becomes more resonant, your movements become more confident, your sixth sense becomes sharper. People are naturally drawn to those with high energy. In a sales meeting, a negotiation, or a leadership speech, the person with the most transmuted energy usually wins. You are not just selling a product or an idea, you are selling your vibe. By controlling your impulses and focusing that fire into your master plan, you become a genius by definition, someone who can perceive ideas that others cannot. How do you practice sex transmutation? It is not about suppression, it is about redirection. First, recognize the feeling of desire when it arises. Do not judge it or try to kill it. Acknowledge it as a massive wave of power. Second, immediately pivot your focus to a specific creative task. If you feel a surge of energy, sit down and write that plan, design that product, or make those sales calls. Third, use auto-suggestion to tell your mind, I am taking this power and using it to build my empire. Fourth, cultivate a relationship with a mastermind partner, specifically a partner of the opposite sex, like a supportive spouse. Hill noted that the influence of a woman's love is the greatest transmuter of all, turning a man's raw drive into refined ambition.
Fifth, practice self-discipline. Avoid overindulgence in any form. Keep your tank full so you have the pressure needed to create. The person who masters their passions masters their destiny. Sex transmutation is the secret sauce that gives your desire its bite and your persistence its teeth. It is the fire in the engine. But even with all this power, there is still one part of you that is running the show behind the scenes. It is a part of you that never sleeps, never forgets, and never stops working. If you don't know how to talk to it, you will always be at its mercy. In the next chapter, we are going deep into the control room. Get ready for Chapter 11, the subconscious mind. It's time to learn the language of your inner giant. See you in the next one.
Did you know that 95% of your life is controlled by a part of your mind that you aren't even aware of? You think you are making conscious choices about your money, your career, and your relationships, but the truth is, you are operating on autopilot. Your conscious mind is like the captain of a massive ship, but the subconscious mind is the engine room and the crew. If the crew has been programmed with fear, doubt, and poverty consciousness, it doesn't matter how hard the captain screams orders, the ship will stay on its course toward failure. Most people struggle because they are trying to willpower their way to success, while their subconscious is working against them. You cannot outrun your internal programming. If your subconscious doesn't see you as a wealthy person, it will find a way to sabotage every opportunity that comes your way. The subconscious mind is a field of consciousness in which every impulse of thought that reaches the objective mind is classified and recorded. It is like a giant library that never closes. It acts as the connecting link between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence. It is the intermediary through which you can order what you want from the universe. But here's the critical rule. The subconscious is totally passive. It does not reason. It does not argue. It accepts whatever seeds you plant in it, whether they are seeds of gold or seeds of weeds. It works 24 hours a day, taking your most dominant thoughts and translating them into their physical equivalent. If you don't give it a plan, it will work on the random thoughts of fear and lack that you pick up from the news and negative people. Let's look at a powerful example of someone who used their subconscious to survive and then thrive, Viktor Frankl. While he wasn't looking for riches in the traditional sense during his time in a concentration camp, he used the exact principle Napoleon Hill describes. Amidst the most horrific conditions imaginable, Frankl realized that while the guards could control his body, they could not control his subconscious inner sanctum. He began to feed his subconscious vivid images of himself after the war, standing on a stage, giving lectures to students about the lessons he learned. He felt the warmth of the lights. He heard the applause. He programmed his subconscious so deeply with the will to meaning that his body miraculously survived conditions that killed thousands of others. His subconscious literally guided his immune system and his decisions to ensure his mental picture became a reality. After the war, every single detail of that mental lecture came true. He became a world-renowned psychiatrist and author. He proved that if you can plant a vision deep enough into the subconscious, the physical world has no choice but to conform to it. Why did Frankl's vision work? Because he didn't just think the thoughts, he felt them. The subconscious mind is moved only by thoughts that are mixed with emotion. Cold, logical thoughts have no power here. This is why affirmations often fail. People say, "I am rich," while feeling poor. The subconscious ignores the words and acts on the feeling. There are 7 positive emotions: desire, faith, love, sex, enthusiasm, romance, hope, and 7 negative ones: fear, jealousy, hatred, revenge, greed, superstition, anger. You must ensure that the positive emotions are the dominating influence of your mind. You are the gardener. Your job is to keep the negative 7 out and the positive 7 in. How do you take control of your engine room? You must use a specific protocol. First, choose a quiet time, ideally just before sleep when the veil between the conscious and subconscious is thinnest. Second, state your definite chief aim clearly and aloud. Third, inject emotion. Do not just say the words. Feel the excitement of the achievement. Feel the gratitude as if the money is already in your bank account. Fourth, use visualization. See the specific house, the car, the bank statement. Make the image as bright and detailed as possible. Fifth, repeat this daily for at least 30 days. It takes time to overwrite years of negative programming. Sixth, guard the input. Stop consuming negative news. Stop hanging out with complainers, and stop talking about your problems. Feed your inner giant only the finest mental food.
Your subconscious mind is the most powerful tool you own. It is the silent partner in your success. Once you learn to communicate with it, you will have an unfair advantage over the rest of the world. But how does the subconscious actually receive these signals? Is there a physical mechanism in the body that acts as a radio station for these thoughts? In the next chapter, we look at the biology of success. We are going inside the most complex machine in the universe. Get ready for Chapter 12, the brain. It's time to tune your frequency. See you there.
Have you ever wondered why some people seem to be lucky? They always happen to be in the right place at the right time. They meet the right partners, stumble upon the right investments, and catch the big breaks, while you are left wondering how they did it. It isn't luck, it's frequency. Most people's brains are like old, broken radios. They are filled with static, the noise of worry, the interference of other people's opinions, and the low-frequency vibrations of fear. They are broadcasting a signal of struggle, so the universe sends them more struggle. If your brain is tuned to the wrong station, you can work 20 hours a day and you will still catch nothing but static. To change your life, you have to change your frequency. You have to stop being a passive receiver of the world's problems and start being a powerful broadcaster of your own desires. Napoleon Hill was decades ahead of his time when he stated that the human brain is both a broadcasting and a receiving station for the vibration of thought. Every human brain is capable of picking up vibrations of thought which are being released by other brains. But more importantly, through the subconscious mind and the creative imagination, your brain can tap into the universal, infinite intelligence. When you step up the rate of vibration of your mind through enthusiasm, sex transmutation, or deep faith, your brain becomes more efficient at broadcasting your goals into the world and receiving the solutions you need. Your gray matter isn't just for storing memories. It is an electromagnetic organ designed to attract the physical equivalent of your most dominant thoughts. Think about Guglielmo Marconi, the man who invented the radio. When Marconi first told his friends that he had discovered a way to send messages through the air without wires, they thought he had lost his mind. In fact, they actually took him to a psychiatric hospital to have him examined. They couldn't see the waves, so they didn't believe they existed. But Marconi had faith, and his brain was tuned to a frequency that others couldn't reach yet. He understood that the air was filled with invisible vibrations. By building a mechanical station to broadcast and receive those vibrations, he changed human history. What Marconi did with copper and electricity, you can do with your own mind. You are a biological radio station. Every time you focus intensely on your definite chief aim, you are sending out a wireless message. The people, the money, and the opportunities that are on that same frequency will eventually be pulled toward you. You don't need to know how the waves travel. You just need to make sure your station is powerful enough to send the signal. Why does this lead to riches? Because wealth has a specific vibration. Confidence, abundance, and power vibrate at a high frequency. Poverty, resentment, and victimhood vibrate at a very low frequency. Your brain is the control dial. When you fill your mind with the 13 principles of this book, you are literally stepping up your voltage. When you walk into a room with a brain that is broadcasting success, people feel it before you even speak. This is what we call presence. It's why some leaders can command an audience and why some entrepreneurs can close $1 million deal with a handshake. They have tuned their broadcasting station so clearly that there is no room for doubt or interference. The world receives their signal and acts accordingly. How do you optimize your broadcasting and receiving power? You must clear the signal. First, eliminate interference. Turn off the low vibration media. Stop consuming news that makes you feel powerless. Stop talking to people who broadcast lack. Second, increase the power. Use the principle of autosuggestion and enthusiasm to boost the intensity of your thought broadcast. A weak thought sends a weak signal. A burning desire sends a signal that can reach across the globe. Third, listen to the receiver. Spend 10 minutes a day in total silence. This is your receiving time. This is when the creative imagination sends you the ideas, the hunches, and the plans you've been asking for. Fourth, the mastermind boost. When you sit with your mastermind group, you are connecting multiple broadcasting stations together. This creates a super signal that is infinitely more powerful than your own. Your brain is the most sophisticated communication device ever created.
You are not a victim of your environment. You are the broadcaster of your reality. Tune it to wealth, and wealth must follow. But there is one final piece to this puzzle. Beyond the 13 principles, beyond the biology of the brain, there is a guardian at the gate of success. It is an invisible sense that guides the elite, warns them of danger, and reveals the path to greatness. Most people never even know it exists. In the next part, we reach the summit of Napoleon Hill's philosophy. Get ready for Chapter 13, The Sixth Sense. This is where you move from being a seeker to being a master. See you at the finish line.
We have covered everything from desire to the biology of the brain. But for many, there is still a feeling that something is missing. You can follow the plans, you can work the hours, and you can visualize the goals. But life is unpredictable. How do you know which way to turn when you reach a crossroads? How do you sense a disaster before it strikes? How do you know an opportunity is right before the data even exists? Most people rely solely on their 5 senses, what they can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. But the 5 senses are limited. They are slow. If you only rely on logic and physical evidence, you are living half a life. You are blind to the infinite field of intelligence that surrounds you. The elite 1% don't just work with their eyes open, they work with their third eye open. They have developed a 6th sense that acts as a guardian angel and a beacon of light. The 6th sense is the portion of the subconscious mind which has been referred to as the creative imagination. It is the receiving station through which ideas, plans, and thoughts flash into the mind. These flashes are sometimes called hunches or inspirations. This principle is the apex of the Think and Grow Rich philosophy. It cannot be understood or applied until you have mastered the first 12 principles. It is the door to the temple of wisdom. When you reach this level, you no longer just think your way to wealth, you are guided to it. You develop a mental radar that warns you of approaching dangers in time to avoid them, and notifies you of opportunities in time to embrace them. It is the spiritual side of money. Napoleon Hill shared a personal practice that allowed him to develop his 6th sense, the invisible counselors. Every night, before going to sleep, Hill would close his eyes and imagine himself sitting at a long table with the greatest minds in history. He invited men like Abraham Lincoln, Aristotle, Napoleon Bonaparte, and Thomas Edison to his council. He would talk to them. He would ask for their advice. He would imagine Lincoln telling him how to handle a crisis, or Edison explaining how to solve a technical problem. At first, he knew it was just his imagination. But over time, something strange happened. These counselors began to take on a life of their own. They would offer him insights he hadn't thought of. They would warn him about business partners who were untrustworthy. His 6th sense began to communicate through these imagined figures. He wasn't crazy. He was simply using a mental tool to access the infinite intelligence that these great men represented. He turned his mind into a playground for genius, and the results showed up in his bank account and his legacy. Why is the 6th sense the secret weapon of the wealthy? Because it operates beyond the speed of thought. In a fast-moving market, you don't always have time to do a SWOT analysis or wait for a board meeting. You have to act. The 6th sense is what we call intuition. It is the result of your subconscious mind processing millions of data points that your conscious mind missed. When your mind is quiet and your vibration is high, the 6th sense can speak. It is a still, small voice. It doesn't scream, it whispers. But that whisper is worth more than 1,000 textbooks. Every great fortune in America was built on a hunch that was backed by action. If you don't listen to your intuition, you are ignoring your most valuable business partner. How do you develop your 6th sense? It is not a gift for the chosen few. It is a skill for the disciplined. First, master the first 12. You cannot have a 6th sense if you are filled with fear or if you have no definite purpose. Second, practice meditation and silence. You cannot hear the whisper of intuition if your life is a constant roar of noise. Spend 20 minutes a day in absolute stillness. Third, trust your hunches. When you get a strong, positive feeling about a direction, act on it immediately. The more you trust your intuition, the stronger it becomes. Fourth, the nightly counsel. Before sleep, imagine yourself seeking advice from your mastermind group or your invisible counselors.
Ask, what is the one thing I'm missing? Fifth, keep a journal. Write down your flashes of inspiration the moment they arrive. Ideas are like lightning. If you don't catch them, they vanish. We have reached the end of the 13 principles. But this is not the end of your story. You now hold the master key to the universe. You know that riches begin with a state of mind. You know that your thoughts are things. Napoleon Hill's formula has created more millionaires than any other system in history. But the formula only works if you do. Go back to chapter 1. Review your desire. Strengthen your faith. Organize your plan. And never, ever stop. The ladder of success is never crowded at the top. The world is waiting for your contribution. It is waiting for your wealth. It is waiting for your genius. Start thinking, start growing, and you will, without a doubt, become rich. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Your new life starts today.